Chicago, founded by a black businessman, Jean-Baptiste Pont du Sable. Chicago, the kind of town where minority millionaires thrive. Chicago, the kind of town where tenacious trailblazers activated a civil and economic plan of empowerment for minorities in the 1960s. Chicago. In the 1960s, a chain of events erupted into civil unrest and economic mayhem and rocked the Windy City at its very core. Rising above the turmoil, a group of corporate and community leaders were determined to beam a spotlight of hope on a seemingly hopeless situation. They knew that systemic racial and economic inequality doomed the advancement of progress. They knew financial clout was the great equalizer. They knew that business ownership was the key to economic empowerment. They knew that there was an underserved supply resource in people of color. They knew that people of color had heard empty lip service many times before. They asked themselves, what do we create that has real opportunities that would make a tangible difference? The answer? The birth of the Chicago Business Opportunity Day. These trailblazers, led by George Johnson of Western Electric, now AT&T, and other corporate executives, brought together 52 companies and 152 MBEs and positioned business owners to potential opportunities of new revenue resources. In 1965, Chicago Economic Development Corporation, CEDCO, was founded. CEDCO grew out of the War on Poverty during Lyndon B. Johnson administration's SBA Economic Opportunity Directive. CEDCO called on Western Electric, and they, along with the Chicago Urban League and the Cosmopolitan Chamber of Commerce, founded the Chicago Business Opportunity Day in 1968. The following year, in 1969, the Chicago Business Opportunity Day was officially renamed Chicago Business Opportunity Fair. Uplifting change was in the air. The word was spreading that Chicago could really be on to something great. CBOF was seen as a game changer. It became the premier event of the newly formed Chicago Regional Purchasing Council with 19 Chicago charter corporations. CRPC's mission was to continue the tasks of creating economic opportunities for MBEs. CRPC's reputation of integrity and due diligence in the certification process became an invaluable partner to majority buyers who sought to do business with qualified and bona fide MBE companies. Although this effort started in Chicago, this was also a red-hot national issue. Not stopping at the creations of CBOF and CRPC, Robert Stewart of National Can recognized that a national organization was needed to coordinate, nurture, and maximize the momentum of this minority business development explosion. A group of Chicago companies led by Stewart founded the National Minority Purchasing Council in 1972. Bob Stewart and the other leaders sought funding from MBDA to form a national organization. The national organization started in Chicago, headed by Philip Duffy, and was located in the CEDCO offices. Later, the name was changed to National Minority Supplier Development Council, NMSDC.
My primary challenge was to reach out to other chief executive officers like myself around the country to see if they would be willing and interested to get involved in a program of this type. The continued commitment and enthusiasm on the part of major corporations and minority entrepreneurs makes the program work because everybody involved knows it benefits all of us.
The game continued to change as minority business legislation swept Capitol Hill during the Nixon administration. And with corporate membership soaring, NMSDC moved to Washington, D.C. National eventually moved to New York City to be closer to the headquarters of many corporate members. Back in Chicago, CRPC continued to establish itself as a bona fide leader in the emerging minority business development. Meanwhile, regional purchasing councils spread all over the U.S., and by 1973, the Chicago Council was joined by 16 other councils. By 1974, there were 21 councils. Throughout their quests, the councils remained focused and clear to equip MBEs with the tools to compete and to become viable suppliers to the corporate community. Legislative laws continued to make minority participation in government contracts mandatory. The Public Works Employment Act of 1977 and Public Law 95-507 in 1978 began to mandate minority participation in government contracts. Fast forward to 1980, when Congressman Perrin Mitchell's amendment to the Surface Transportation Assistance Act required a 10% set-aside for minority business. Enter Harriet Michelle as the president of NMSDC in 1988. It is an undisputed fact that Harriet Michelle put NMSDC on the map. The rest is history.
The mission of the National Minority Supplier Development Council has been consistent for the past 25 years. That is, to bring corporations and minority businesses together for the purpose of doing business. Today, we have over 16,000 minority businesses nationwide and over 3,500 corporations. In our 25-year history, the purchases from minority suppliers by corporate America have gone from $86 million to over $30 billion. As we move toward the 21st century, corporations will increasingly rely on minority customers for increased market share and profit margins. Corporations and minority businesses, what a wonderful marriage.
That was then. This is now. NMSDC has set the gold standard for MBE certification, and Chicago MSDC is a maverick in this process. The national network of councils has soared over the period from 1968 to 2010, and today, 37 councils exist. In Chicago, certified MBEs employ 75% of other minorities. Minority millionaires continue to multiply. Chicago MSDC continues to provide corporations and MBEs access to each other. At Chicago MSDC, headed by Sheila Hill Morgan, President and CEO, members report over $5 billion and 90,000 jobs created by Chicago minority firms. Marquee corporate members such as AT&T, Allstate, PepsiCo, Navistar, Northern Trust, Kraft, Harris, Exelon, BP, United Airlines, and more have been part of Chicago's council for decades. Chicago has over 1,100 certified MBEs and continues to be one of the largest councils in the network. NMSDC has over 3,500 members and 16,000 MBEs. In response to the world moving to a global economy, NMSDC is keeping pace with the world by expanding business diversity and its reach through global link partners in Canada, South Africa, Australia, China, and the United Kingdom. As we celebrate our supplier development councils as bona fide change agents in the U.S. and abroad, we're fortunate to be living in a time of unique and enormous change. And we acknowledge the Chicago role models that continue to inspire the world. The minority supplier development movement started here in Chicago, then evolved to a national organization with a global reach. Today, we have come full circle. Josette B. Wright, a Chicagoan and former president of Ameritech, now AT&T, and a trailblazer, who now leads the National Minority Supplier Development Council, and we look to her for her vision and implementation in growing NMSDC in this challenging economic climate. The millennium is truly a new era, an era of tremendous change, of inconvenient truths, an era of extraordinary, unpredictable happenings untested, It is an era of new vision and optimism. The NMSDC will continue to take quantum leaps in national and global minority business development, and Chicago will continue to be a purveyor of hopes, dreams, and economic opportunities for all.